Hello students. Today we will be seeing how we can remote login and file transfer protocol. So remote login means we can log in into a computer which is far from our place. So the meaning remote itself is which is far from us. We use TV remote or AC remote or any kind of remote which we use, and they are called as remote because we can function them from a distance, right? So that's why it is known as remote. So remote login, maybe a computer is in another state, another country. From here, if we can log in into that computer, we can say we can remote login. So there are different type of softwares, different protocols, different methods through which we can log in into those computer. So in previous section we talked about file transfer protocol, FTP. In this section we shall talk about some more protocols such as SFTP, that is secure FTP, SSH secure shell, SCP secure copy, and Telnet. So first, Telnet. Telnet is an older internet utility that lets you log on to remote computer system. Basically, a Telnet program gives you a character-based terminal window on another system. So here you can see that Telnet is a program, or it's a internet utility that lets you log into a computer from a very far distance. And Telnet programs give you a character-based terminal, means you will get a window through which you can control that other computer. If you are permitted access, you can work on that system just as you would if you are sitting next to it. So if you are given permission, suppose in your friend's computer you have installed a software and that same software is in your computer, so you have to use some user ID and password. Then what will happen? Your friend has to accept that you are allowed to access his computer. So if he allows you, then what will happen? You can work with his computer in the same way as if you are sitting right now, means right there in front of that computer. So there are such type of softwares. Traditionally, Telnet has been used by people who have logins or remote system and want to do serious work there. But Telnet has some additional uses that are more relevant to people who are exploring the internet. So earlier, Telnet was used for some serious work, means like computer head office. Suppose someone is working in an office and that head office of that office is somewhere else, far distance. Okay, so that person will be using Telnet to access the information of that head office and so on. But now Telnet has some additional uses who are exploring the internet. Most notably, you can use Telnet to connect to thousands of catalogs and libraries around the world. So if you know that there are some digital libraries where you can view books, you can download them, you can read them for free. So there also they are using Telnet. This capability is wonderful for anyone doing serious research. So if someone is doing research, for them Telnet is very useful. Imagine being able to find out which book in your particular discipline are available in a number of specialty libraries in remote location, all while you plug away at desktop. So from your desktop, if you access all the information or all the books of a library from your place, so just imagine what facilities you will be enjoying. From home you will be enjoying all the books of a library. So how Telnet works? The computer through which you want to connect to remote server is the client computer. So your computer will be the client. So always remember that if you are accessing the internet or any server, you are always the client, and from wherever you are getting information, that will be the server. To connect to remote server via Telnet, following process happen. Using Telnet client software on your computer make a connection to a Telnet server over internet. So your computer will have a software which will be known as Telnet client software, and from that computer you will be connecting to the Telnet server through internet. Once your Telnet client establishes a connection to the remote host, your client become a virtual terminal, allowing you to communicate with the remote host from your computer. So once your client connection is established with that server, you will have a virtual terminal. Terminal means it's a window If you have command prompt, if you have seen command prompt, that is also known as a terminal, allowing you to communicate with the remote host from your computer. Now you can type telnet based access command on telnet client computer, which are then sent to the remote telnet server, and the telnet server acts accordingly. So there are certain commands which you have to type, and once you type those command will be sent to the server, and that server will act according to it. Next, secure shell protocol. Definition of secure shell protocol is remote logging protocol that logs onto remote machine via a shell which all data between the client and server is encrypted. So it is a protocol which is used by telnet, so that information from your computer to the server is encrypted. Encrypted means it won't be visible to others, so then it becomes very secure. The SSH protocol ensures security shell using other protocols like SCP and SFTP. You shall read about this in upcoming lines. So significance of SSH. So this part you don't have to go deeply, you don't have to understand so much. All you have to understand is that from your computer, maybe here it is written SSH client, and you might think that these things are different, but actually it is your computer. So if your computer has a software, then you can say that your computer is a SSH client, and through this secured pipe or secured line which where informations are encrypted, you can access this server, that is SSH server. So this is how information are sent. You just have to know about the definition. Then SCP, secure copy. SCP is a secure copy in one such protocol. The SCP protocol allows you to transmit file from one machine to another over internet with encrypted benefit of SSH. So SCP is a method of copying information from this server. If you want something in your computer, definitely you have to copy it. So whenever you will be copying, you will be using a system which is known as secure copy. This much will be enough. Then secure FTP. Secure FTP is a file transfer protocol but is secure contrary to unsecure FTP. FTP and SFTP both are similar, but in SFTP the file transfer are done securely. You can write in that way. Web services. Web services are the services or application available via web through the use of specific protocol. So there are different type of services like chatting, then you will get different type of chattings. So then video conferencing, where they are used. So these type of applications through which which we uses in our daily life, those applications are known as web services. So like chatting, email, video conferencing, social networking, etc. These are all web services. So chatting, you all know, out of 24 hours, I think at least 12 hours you all chat with your friends, right? So online textual talk is called chatting. Chatting is one of the popular services over internet. Chatting is like a text phone. In telephonic conversation, you say something, people hear it and respond. You hear their response on the spot and can reply instantly. In the same manner, in chatting, you type a message on your screen which is immediately received by recipient. Then the recipient can type a message in response to your message which is received by you instantly. So I hope this part is clear, because you have been practicing doing chatting and all. I don't have to tell you what is chatting, right? But chat room, earlier there were chat room. Nowadays I don't think chat rooms are there. Chat room, you can say it's kind of group. You have different groups. Then you have groups in Facebook also where you can talk with people. So earlier, before Google was invented, there was Yahoo, and one service of Yahoo was Yahoo Messenger. In Yahoo Messenger, if you want to chat with someone, you have to create an ID, then you have to enter a chat room with similar interests. Suppose you have interest on football, so you can join a group chat room which are for football. Means people who has interest on football, they will join that group and they can chat to one another. So those are known as chat room. But nowadays chat rooms are not much popular. Commonly used type of chat, instant messaging. It is a type of communication service via IM software that enables one to create a kind of private chat connection with another individual in order to communicate in real time over the internet, similar to a telephone conversation, but using the text based, not voice based communication. So there means if you're using WhatsApp, all of you are using WhatsApp, then when we type text there, we are using a software known as IM software. So using that software you can communicate with people through text, that is known as instant messaging. The most popular form of IM is instant messaging, such as AOL Messenger softwares allow anyone who downloads their free software to choose a nickname and chat with anyone else. So earlier in those Yahoo chat messenger, you have to give a nickname, means you have to provide a nickname, and then you can chat with those people. Even Skype is also a popular chatting software. Then ICQ, which is also similar sounding like ICQ. ICQ offers chatting via ICQ software. It is used as a conferencing tools by individual on the net to chat, email, perform file transfer, play computer games and more. So this is also not much popular nowadays. It was earlier during you can say during 1995 or around 2000, 2004, 2005. These things were popular, which are not popular nowadays. IRC, Internet Relay Chat. Unlike IM and ICQ, IRC is not owned by any company. To use IRC, you need IRC client program. IRC has many networks that are completely separate from one another. If you want to chat with someone on IRC, you need to make sure that you are connected to an IRC server via your PC IRC client program. So IRC client program, they does not belong to any particular company. You have to means actually you have to use a IRC client program, or you have to buy a client program. You through that only you can chat with people. Web-based chat is also like IRC, but it is different from it in the sense that it is a specific website and no program is really needed to install in your computer. Yahoo Chat is a great example. In IRC you have to download that software, install it, and then connect to your internet, and then you can talk. But web-based chat, you don't have to install it, you have to visit the website. Then there will be some options where you have to click and you can start chatting, just like Facebook. So Facebook Messenger, you can say it is IRC because you have to download it in your mobile phone and then chat. But if you are using a browser, through browser you don't have to download the software. In the browser itself you can through the browser you can chat with your friends. That will be web-based chat. Then video conferencing, the next dimension in internet communication is that video phone. People who have multimedia PC with the camera and video compressor hardware access to internet over ordinary telephone. So video conferencing also, you have been doing video conferencing with your friends. So it appears like this nowadays, not only from person to person. You can do group video conferencing, group video calls. Areas of application where they are used. Video conferencing are used in business. It is not necessary that you will be writing the definition which is given in the book. From your point of view also you can write that in business people can use video conferencing for doing meetings, or for during this one lockdown people are using video conferencing to work from home. So these things you can write. Distance learning, here though we are doing direct video, means recorded video, but if there were live video classes, then it would have been distance learning through video conferencing. Telecommunications with client, nowadays you will see there are certain verifications through telecommunications. From the telecommunications side, they do telecommunications, means with through video conferencing. Legal environment, then legal witnesses and prisoners also, nowadays they are done through video conferencing. Telemedicine, if a doctor is far away, or there are certain apps, Practo is there, through which you can communicate with the doctor. You can have appointment and you can, without visiting that doctor, means physically, from home itself you can consult a doctor. Then media, through video conferencing, journalists can participate in international press conference from any location without having to leave their office. So these are the areas of application where video conferencing is done. Then advantages and disadvantages of video conferencing. First, let's see advantages. Saves travel cost and travel time. Suppose there is a business meeting in Delhi, so the person, if he have to travel from Guwahati to Delhi, he have to pay fare, either it's means through flight or through train. He have to pay money. Then again he has to spend some time, means if he is going through flight, at least it will take 45 minutes to 1 hour, and again waiting time in airport. If he's traveling through train, at least more than 24 hours it will take for him to reach that place. So if we do video conferencing, it will save his travel cost and also travel time. Allows conducting meeting with people at different location across the globe. So if you have friends across the globe in a different part of the country, you can consult them, you can talk with them through video conferencing. You can actually meet them virtually. You can see people as well as hear them. This means you can see their body languages, which you can't do with a telephone call. So if you are talking over phone to someone, what is that person's reaction, you won't know. Whether that person is irritated, annoyed, or happy or smiling, you can't say actually. But if you do a video conferencing call, you can see that person's body language, and you can tell that person whether that person is interested in talking with you or not. You can view a document on a screen at the same time. People can work together and add their ideas. So if there is any video through Zoom, I don't know whether you have done any conferencing call through Zoom, but in Zoom you can actually share a document, and all the people who are in that Zoom meeting, they can put their idea in that document. The document can be emailed to all of the people at the meeting later on. Ideas and knowledges can be communicated between all those at the meeting very quickly, and response gather. Video conferencing is good for brainstorming. So if group of people, they are doing some project work and they don't have time to meet at a certain place, they can do video conferencing late at night when they are free from their work, and they can do brainstorming. Video conferencing is excellent way of keeping in touch with friends and family, even if they are in different country. So with your friends and family, if you want to keep in touch, you can stay in touch with them through this video conferencing. Now disadvantages. What are the different disadvantages? Additional cost of video conferencing, specific hardware and software. So you need a mobile phone, or you will need a computer, or if you have a desktop, then you will need a webcam. Then internet connection, specific hardware and softwares are required. Means you have to install Zoom, or you have to install WhatsApp or any other software for doing a video conferencing. A very reliable fast data link is needed to conduct video conferencing. If your data connection is not good, then that video conferencing won't be a good one. It won't be a result oriented. Even with fast connection, there might be a slight delay between response, especially from one side of the planet to the other. So if it's a very long distance video conference call, then it will take some time to get a reaction. Sometime it might take 5 to 10 seconds for that person to react. Practically, if you've done any video call, then I definitely, I'm sure that you know you will understand this point. If your hardware breaks down, or for any of the participant, they cannot attend the meeting. Suppose you have problem with your phone, or if with problem with your computer, or you don't have net pack, then you won't be able to attend that meeting. People could be in a different time zones around the world. This might mean some people have to stay up through the night in order to attend the meeting. For people who are in a different country, they have to wait till night, or maybe someone has to wait till day, or if the time zone is different, then they have to wait in very odd hour. They have to attend the meeting. The video camera might not be able to see all the parts of the room at the same time. Some people might not be easy to see the meeting. If there is default or fault in that camera, then there might be some issue. They won't be seeing the other person, or they won't be seeing the things which are displayed on the meeting. So these are the disadvantages of video conferencing. Then e-learning is there, which we will be doing in the next class. E-learning software, e-banking, so e-banking and all. I hope till here it is clear to you. These are things which you have done practically, so it won't be much difficult for you to understand. Okay, so today I will be giving you some questions, some homework. Let's give in the video itself. First, you write disadvantages and advantages of video conferencing. 3 advantages and 3 disadvantages from your own. Then definition of video conferencing, this is question number 2. Commonly used types of chat, which is not given here, you write on your own. This is question number 3. Then difference between SFTP and FTP, that will be question number 4. What is telnet will be question number 5. Okay, so this 5 question you write and you send it to me. Thank you.